Only one item remained, a Polaroid taped to the inside wall of the unit. A single word scribbled across it in black ink. Soon. Hale looked up, breath fogging in the cold unit. He felt watched. He felt the circle close. He scribbled a note, shoved it into his coat, and ran back out into the rain. As he hit the parking lot, headlights flooded the gate. A black van idled near the entrance. Someone stepped out, boots heavy, tactical tread like the ones in the marsh. The figure lifted a hand and pointed directly at Hale. Hale swallowed. He could not tell if the gesture was accusation or invitation. The man spoke, voice amplified by the rain. "You're in over your head, detective." Hale raised his hands. He had questions. He had a flicker of evidence. He had a hollow where his allies had been. The man smiled under the brim of his cap. "You should have stopped when you had the chance," he said. Behind the man, the van's side door slid open. Inside, a single chair, bolt strapped to the floor. A seatbelt dangled. The chair faced the unit. Hale felt the world tilt. He felt the trap tightening into a noose. He wanted to run. He wanted to pull his gun. He wanted to scream, but the rain drowned out his shout. He stepped forward, heart pounding, toward a truth that wanted to swallow him. The rain was a hard white curtain, sound blurred. Detective Mark Hale could barely see the man's face under the cap. The tactical boots were familiar now. Too familiar. He felt the memory of the marsh under his soles like an old bruise. "Hands where I can see them," the man said. His voice was flat, practiced. Two others moved from the van's shadow, silent, blocking the only clear exit. Hale's hand hovered near his holster, then stayed. He had no backup in sight. No Mara, no card. Just the weight of the case in his pockets and the wrongness of the moment. "Who are you?" Hale asked. The man didn't answer. He lifted a small device, an IR scope, and scanned Hale's face. "You've been warned," he said. "This ends tonight." Hale swallowed. "And what?" "Who sent you?" A laugh, low and humorless. "You're not that important. You just ask too many questions." They moved him to the van in quick, efficient motions. The world smelled of damp leather and oil. The inside was stripped down, clean, clinical. The chair was bolted. Hale's wrists were cuffed to the armrests with zip ties. They didn't take his gun. They left it on his hip as if to mock him. The man, tall, broad-shouldered, sat opposite Hale, hands folded. He removed his cap. The face was not unknown. Hale stiffened. The man was the town's facilities director, James Eller. He maintained municipal properties, drove the heavy trucks, and knew the routes to every service gate. "You?" Hale said. "Eller?" "Why?" Eller's eyes were calm. "Because you need to stop looking where you don't belong," he said. "Because when you dig, people get hurt. Because some things are bigger than you, Mark." Hale laughed, a short, hard sound. "Bigger than justice?" Eller's jaw tightened. "Bigger than headlines. Bigger than a town's conscience." He tapped a folder on his knee. Inside, a photo of June, smiling, then a close shot of her arm with the scar. Under it, a Polaroid of Mara, bound, a setup to shame. Eller slid the images across to Hale like cards. "You found these. You saw what you were told to see." Hale's head throbbed. "Where's Mara?" Eller's face didn't change. "She's safe." For now, he smiled thinly. "We don't kill our hunters. We neutralize them. You should understand the difference." The van rumbled. It moved. They drove. Hale kept his eyes on the taillights as they passed the river, the dump, the dark outline of the warehouses. Eller spoke in a flat voice about town budgets and the cost of disruption. He framed their actions as necessary, expediency dressed as morality. They protected the town's economy, its donors, its rhythms. They cleaned rot before it spread. Hale watched the roads reel by. He thought of Chief O'Connor's handwriting, of Dana's confession, of Michael Raines's contracts. He thought of the list with his name on it and the hard drive that had vanished. He thought of Mara's notebook. If I'm taken, look to Dana. The van stopped at a private compound outside town, gated, high fences, security lights humming. The men ushered Hale into a small room, windowless, lit by a single hanging bulb, a metal table, 2 chairs, a camera in the corner. "You'll sit," Eller said. "You'll answer a few questions. You'll agree to a little quiet. Or you disappear in a way that doesn't bring us grief." "Who are you working for?" Hale asked. Eller's smile widened. "We work for the town," he said. "We work for its future. Sometimes the future needs firm hands." They unzipped a case and pulled out a tablet. On it, footage Hale had not seen, surveillance from months back showing Hale at a fundraiser, Hale with the mayor, Hale meeting a woman in a cafe. The overlaid text read, "Pattern, influence." Another clip showed Hale's children arriving at school. The attack had a plan, to turn the detective into the story. "We don't want to hurt you," Eller said. "We want compliance." You sign a letter of resignation. You agree to a transferred position out of town. You let the town heal. You stop. Hale looked at the camera. He thought of the men who'd killed trust faster than they killed evidence. He thought of Mara, who'd disappeared from the unit 2 minutes ago. He thought of June, whose blood had been planted, whose scar had been faked, who had been photographed to create a narrative. "No," he said. Eller's face hardened. He stood and signaled. 2 men left the room. One returned with a small black box. "We record everything now," Eller said. "We also erase when needed." He tapped the box. A soft whir, a low hum. "We can make this all look like a mistake. Or we can make it look like you snapped." Hale's chest tightened. He thought of his family. He thought of the anonymous call that threatened his daughter. He thought of the Polaroid, of the scar. He thought of the list with his name. If they framed him, his family would be the collateral. He needed leverage. He needed a way out. He remembered Lena's card. Harbor Shield, Mercer Michael Raines, the memory card Mara had handed him, gone, the hard drive stolen. Whoever controlled the cameras could manufacture anything. Hale closed his eyes. He did the only thing he could think of. He lied. "How much do you need?" he said. "Money? Names? A transfer? I'll sign. I'll do whatever. Just let my family go." Eller's eyes flicked. The man considered. A long minute passed. Finally, Eller nodded once. "You sign tonight," Eller said. "You leave town by dawn. You say nothing. You live quietly. If you have any loyalty to your family, you comply." Hale asked for proof of Mara's safety. Eller smiled. "She's safe. She'll reappear in time. We don't kill our own." They set Hale at a laptop and opened a document. Pre-written, dotted lines waiting for his name. The camera rolled. Hale thought of justice, of the townspeople who trusted him, of the list with his name. If he signed, he saved his family. If he refused, he might stop this machine, but at a terrible cost. He typed his name, not his real signature, not yet. He typed instead a single sentence into the document. "I will resign and leave town on the following conditions: full protection of my family, full custody of all evidence, and immediate federal involvement." Eller's jaw tightened. He barked at the men to stand by. "You don't get to make demands," he said. "You sign, or you are gone." Hale hit send. The email pinged. He'd sent it to the state attorney general's office, to the one federal agent he trusted from his past, Agent Ruiz, and to a private investigator friend who owed Mara a favor. It was a gamble. If the email reached someone with teeth, a pin might prick the balloon. The men swore. Eller slammed the laptop shut. "You've bought a little time," he said. "For that, we reward you." They uncuffed Hale and drove him back into town. At his house, his front door was barricaded. An officer he trusted on watch. His family slept in locked rooms. The officer nodded when Hale walked in, eyes wide. "We found a note nailed to the front porch," she said. "No signature. Just 2 words. Walk away." Hale kissed his daughter and watched her sleep. She was peaceful, trusting. He felt the weight of a decision like a stone in his chest. He didn't sleep that night. He drove to the station, then to Lena's laundromat, then to Harbor Shield's shell office. He met his contacts, ran checks, pushed the envelopes. The clock ticked. The email might take minutes or days to be read. He had to act. He drove back to the storage facility where Mara had last been seen. He moved through the rows, boots echoing. Unit 12 was empty. The Polaroid still taped inside read, in black ink, "Soon." He pocketed the Polaroid and walked toward his car. As he reached the lot, his phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Nice try." Attached. A photo of his living room, clearly taken from inside his house. On the couch, his wife's pillow, their dog asleep beside it. Another text, "We get closer every time." Hale felt the room tilt. He was a man inside a slowly closing circle. He had made a play, and now the players pushed back. He needed a way to get ahead. He needed proof that could not be erased, a chain the conspirators could not break. He thought of the hard drives, the camcorder, the memory cards, the things taken from evidence. He thought of the catalog in Harbor Shield's unit, a list with pins. If he could find Mercer, if he could get a drive replicating the whole trove, he might expose the network. He called Agent Ruiz. The line rang. It went to voicemail. He left a terse message. "Immediate. Harbor Shield. Mercer unit addresses I have. We're moving tonight." When he hung up, a car pulled into the lot. A black sedan. It idled, the headlights off. Hale watched it from across the street. A woman stepped out. Dana Rhodes. She moved with purpose, no cuffs. She looked at Hale and held up a manila envelope. Her eyes were wet. "There's someone you need to see," she said. Hale approached slowly. "Why are you free?" Dana's breath hitched. "Because I made a choice," she said. "I lied to protect my family." She took a step closer. "But I couldn't keep doing that. I came to tell you where they're keeping June. I can take you, if you're willing to risk everything." Hale's heart leapt. "Where?" Dana closed her mouth. She looked off down the street. Her voice fell to a whisper. "They moved her to the old salt works." Unit B-4. "But it's a trap. They're watching me. They know I talked to you. If you move in the open, they'll seize her and disappear her permanently." Hale felt the blood leave his face. "Then we move now." "Quiet. Call in reinforcements." Dana shook her head. "They have eyes everywhere. The van drivers, the guys at the dump, the cameras. We need a plan." Tonight, she handed him the envelope. Inside, a single Polaroid, an interior shot of a concrete room with a metal cot. A single line scrawled in red, B4, midnight. Hale looked up. The black sedan's engine purred. Someone inside watched them. Behind Dana, a shadow moved. Eller's men. They had cut off any easy choice. Dana grabbed Hale's arm. "You trust me?" Hale saw something in her eyes. Fear, yes, but also a raw determination he didn't recognize. He nodded. "Good," she said. "We leave in 20 minutes. Alone, no backup. We go in, get the girl, get out. If this is a setup, we need to be ghosts." Hale's phone buzzed again. Unknown number. He answered. A voice, cold as the river, whispered, "Nice try, detective. But you can't save everyone." The line clicked dead. Hale looked at Dana. He looked at the Polaroid. He looked at the approaching van. The rain made a hard sound on the pavement. He had hours before dawn. He had a single Polaroid, a woman who might be convinced or coerced, and the knowledge that the conspirators expected him to move. He pulled his coat tighter and slid the Polaroid into his pocket. He checked his watch. Midnight in the salt works. He thought of Mara and of June, and of every life folded under signatures and stamps. He had a choice: trust Dana and walk into a room that might be a trap, or wait and call federal agents and risk losing June forever. He started toward his car. From the shadows, a black-clad figure emerged. They moved too fast. A suppressed shot cracked. Hale felt a burn in his shoulder and went down to one knee. Dana screamed. People scattered. The darkness swallowed the man's face. He dropped something into Hale's chest, cold metal, a card. He smiled, the curve of his lips cruel. "You asked for a warning," the man said. "This is it." He walked away into the rain. Hale opened the card with shaking fingers. On it, in neat typed letters, "You were warned. Stop, or they die." Below that, in a handwriting Hale recognized all too well, Chief O'Connor's slanted loop, was a single word: soon. Hale clutched the card. The breath left him. He had been pushed into a corner, baited to make moves. Behind him, the salt works loomed, a dark, hulking silhouette against the black river. Midnight approached. He stood slowly, shoulder bleeding, and faced Dana. "Do we go?" she asked. Hale looked at the manila envelope in her hand, at the Polaroid that might be a life or a lie, at the rain-slicked road leading to the salt works. He should call for backup. He should wait for federal agents. But if June was alive and being moved, any delay could mean losing her forever. He made the choice. "We go," he said. They moved toward the car. As Hale reached for the door, his phone buzzed one last time. Unknown number, a short video attached. He opened it. The footage was from a camera trained inside a small concrete room. A woman sat on a metal cot, her hair dark and wet. She looked up, directly at the lens. The camera zoomed in slowly. The woman raised her hand, and Hale saw the tattoo on her wrist. It was June Harper. She mouthed one word: "Help." The video looped in Hale's hand like a pulse. June's mouth formed the single desperate word again: help. Hale didn't think. He acted. He and Dana moved fast, silent. Blood throbbed in his shoulder, a hot reminder of how close the men were. They cut through alleys, avoided main roads, and took the service entrance to the old salt works. An iron gate left slightly ajar by tide and neglect. The place smelled of brine and rust. Every step echoed. They found Unit B-4 where the Polaroid had shown. Concrete door, bolt, a faded stenciled number. Hale placed his ear to the metal. A faint scrape, a muffled cough. He kicked. Metal screamed. The lock splintered. Inside, June Harper looked smaller than any image could show. She lay on a cot, pale. A shroud of red paint streaked on the mattress. Her wrists bore the half-healed scar from the Polaroid. A dirty bandage covered a newer cut. Her eyes opened when Hale called her name. She tried to smile. It faltered. They moved quickly. Dana cut June's restraints and checked her for signs of drugs or worse. June's voice was thin. She spoke in fits, a puzzle of fragments. A clinic, a camera, a man named Mercer, a van with no plates, a room with a metal cot, someone who whispered threats using a chief's name. She pointed at Hale and Dana. "They watched everything," she rasped. "They filmed me. They made me scream into the camera. They told me to say I'd leave. They made me sign papers." Her face crumpled. Mara tried to help. She couldn't finish. Hale's anger sharpened into focus. He shoved June into the back of the car and told Dana to stay with her. He swept the perimeter for watchers. He found tracks, 3 sets of tactical boot prints leading toward the river road. They were fresh. Engines hummed in the distance. Headlights ghosted over the water. Men moved toward the compound with practiced silence. Hale had expected them. He had hoped for a clean rescue, but this was never meant to be tidy. They drove like men fleeing a closing tide. Hale kept glancing in the rear view at June in the back seat, alive, fragile, clutching a scrap of Mara's notebook. He called for backup on a secure line and sent an evidence packet to the state AG and to Agent Ruiz. The chase on the river road ended at the abandoned bridge. The van that had been following them pulled up, doors slamming. Eller's men stepped out in tactical gear. Behind them, Chief O'Connor stood with his hands empty but his face a mask. Michael and Paul Raines flanked him. Dana gripped the wheel until her knuckles were white. Hale cut the engine. With June in the car, he had leverage. He stepped out into the rain and walked toward the men. "You're done," he said, voice steady. "Stand down." The chief's laugh was quick and hollow. "You think you can stop this with a phone call?" he asked. "You don't know what keeps a town running." Across Hale's shoulder, headlights burst as state troopers and a federal SUV descended on the lot. Agent Ruiz jumped out, gun drawn. The email had worked. Chaos erupted. Shouts, the clatter of guns, men moving, arrests. Eller and several enforcers tried to run and were cut off. Paul and Michael were cuffed. Chief O'Connor tried to plead immunity and duty. Dana froze, tears streaking her face as officers read her rights. Hale watched it all as if waking from a sustained nightmare. In the aftermath, investigators found a hard drive in the chief's car containing footage that would shred reputations. It showed meetings between the chief, contractors, and Harbor Shield representatives agreeing to quiet arrangements, the staged clinic scene where June's scar was fabricated, and directives to neutralize investigators who dug too deep. The chief blamed debts and blackmail but refused to name who had pressured him. Federal prosecutors later identified Michael Raines and Gavin Mercer as the central architects of the network that sold manufactured evidence and intimidation to towns across the region. Eller and several enforcers were indicted on charges of kidnapping, conspiracy, and witness intimidation. Paul and Michael Raines faced charges including obstruction, fraud, and participation in the evidence manufacturing operation. Chief O'Connor resigned and was charged with conspiracy, tampering with evidence, and racketeering. Dana Rhodes cooperated and provided detailed testimony about the internal manipulation she'd helped carry out under pressure. Her plea deal required full disclosure and significant assistance in securing Mercer and his associates. Mara's trail was the most stubborn loose end. She had vanished after slipping Hale a memory card and a Polaroid. Her backpack and notebook surfaced, but no body turned up. Federal agents followed leads that put her near a private airstrip out of state and on a list of passengers using an alias. Then the paper trail stopped. Some investigators suspected she'd faked her disappearance to go dark and protect evidence until the network could be fully dismantled. Others feared she'd been spirited away by allies or enemies who wanted control of what she knew. Months of follow-up interviews, subpoenas, and surveillance turned up no definitive answer for a time. June testified under federal protection. Her statements were detailed and devastating. Dates, locations, names, and the mechanics of how the network operated. Fake clinics, coached confessions, fabricated injuries, planted blood, and the use of private security fronts to move people and evidence. Her courage and clarity helped prosecutors obtain the warrants and execute the coordinated arrests that brought Harbor Shield, Mercer, and key municipal conspirators down. Gavin Mercer, once untraceable, flipped when federal agents cornered him in another state. He produced server logs, hidden accounts, and a ledger of contracts showing how payments flowed from town coffers and private companies into Mercer's network. His cooperation unearthed phone records, escrow accounts, and the technological methods used to falsify timestamps and mask origins. Harbor Shield's infrastructure was dismantled. Several contractors and local operatives entered plea agreements. The trials were bitter and public. The town convulsed through testimony, evidence, and the slow business of legal reckoning. Reforms followed. state oversight of municipal contracts, strict auditing of evidence handling, and new protections for whistleblowers and investigators. The mayor resigned, new elections brought fresh leadership, and the police department underwent independent review and personnel changes designed to break the channels of influence that had made the scheme possible. June survived and rebuilt. She moved under a protection plan, testified bravely in court, and later worked with victim advocacy groups to help others ensnared by manufactured crimes. The bracelet recovered in the Harbor Shield stash became a small talisman of survival she kept locked away. Mara's memory card, part of the cash Hale had briefly held and later recovered, was crucial. It contained moral weight of her actions. The town's healing was neither quick nor complete, but the legal reckoning provided a measure of accountability. Hale watched some of the prosecutions from the gallery. He testified about procedures, oversight failures, and the importance of protecting investigators. He kept a file labeled Open, where he stored Mara's first typewritten note and the final Polaroids. He stayed in close touch with June's legal team and with federal agents as they shut down the last of the Shell account. There were quieter, lasting effects. Policies changed. Municipalities required third-party audits for contracts, evidence rooms adopted dual-control procedures, and new state laws banned the use of third-party security firms for certain police work. Training for investigators emphasized digital forensics and the signs of manufactured evidence. Lena, the laundromat owner, received a small civic recognition for her quiet courage. The town memorialized June's ordeal during a community vigil that acknowledged both failure and resilience. Mara, under federal protection, eventually took a new identity and moved across the country. She remained in contact with Hale through secured channels for a time, sharing notes that helped close secondary investigations and protect remaining witnesses. She never fully returned to the life she'd had. The costs were too high. But she was alive and, by her own admission, had chosen a life of distance as the price of survival and the means to keep others safe. Hale did not return to the same precinct desk. The case had changed him. He accepted a role advising the state attorney general's office on reforms to prevent similar conspiracies. He visited June once, months after her rescue, and watched her plant a small tree at the edge of town, something living and outward-facing in a place that had learned to look inward honestly. Some nights, he still thumbed the Polaroid Mara had left, the one that had started the avalanche. He kept it in a small box labeled Remember. He never stopped thinking about how close the town had come to losing its moral compass, and how easy it could be for systems to be corrupted when fear and money met in shadowed rooms. In time, trials closed, sentences were served, and the town moved forward with the hard work of rebuilding trust. June found steady work helping others who'd been manipulated by coerced testimonies. Mara found anonymity and safety and, eventually, a place where her name no longer brought danger. Hale kept working to tighten the seams of oversight in other towns, determined that the operation that once ran through his community could not be repeated elsewhere. The case that had been the one the police tried to forget became instead a turning point. It showed how easily systems could be perverted, and also how persistence, community pressure, and careful forensic work could set them right. The men who sold fear and falsified truths were in cages. The contractors and their corrupt arrangements were dismantled. Survivors found voices. Whistleblowers were protected. When Hale closed the final file, after Mara's signed affidavit, after June's final court testimony, after payments and accounts were frozen, he felt a weight lift that had nothing to do with legal closure. The town would carry scars. People would carry memories. But for the first time since June's car had been found on Old Mill Road, Hale allowed himself to think the word that had been so distant. Done. He walked out of the records room into a late afternoon sun. June's tree creaked in a wind that smelled of salt and new leaves. Hale stood for a long while, then turned and walked toward the community he had fought to protect. The work would never be finished, but the dangerous secret machine had been broken. Justice, slow, imperfect, and human, had been done. Raw footage, metadata fragments, and a set of interview-style clips in which Mara had recorded notes for herself and detailed observations about the network's logistics. Her notebook mapped names, payment flows, and locations that prosecutors used to corroborate Mercer's documents. Whether she had chosen to disappear or had been taken and later protected by assets who wanted to use her testimony at a strategic moment, her materials were instrumental in bringing the guilty to justice. Months after convictions began, federal agents located Mara alive. She had been moved, covertly, by a small coalition of investigators and witnesses who feared immediate public exposure would endanger victims still at risk. She surfaced quietly in a safe house arranged by the Federal Witness Protection Program. When she did eventually testify, under controlled conditions, her accounts filled gaps and sealed cases against remaining co-conspirators. She explained that she had gone dark at first because the network had reach into places she trusted. Disappearing was a gamble that preserved evidence and kept people alive while prosecutors built airtight cases. Trials concluded with significant sentences. Mercer received a lengthy prison term after his guilty plea and cooperation. Chief O'Connor, Paul and Michael Raines, Eller, and several others were convicted on various counts related to conspiracy, kidnapping, tampering with evidence, and racketeering. Dana Rhodes's cooperation reduced her penalty, though she publicly faced the moral weight of her actions. The town's healing was neither quick nor complete, but the legal reckoning provided a measure of accountability. Hale watched some of the prosecutions from the gallery. He testified about procedures, oversight failures, and the importance of protecting investigators. He kept a file labeled Open, where he stored Mara's first typewritten note and the final Polaroids. He stayed in close touch with June's legal team and with federal agents as they shut down the last of the shell account. There were quieter, lasting effects. Policies changed. Municipalities required third-party audits for contracts, evidence rooms adopted dual-control procedures, and new state laws banned the use of third-party security firms for certain police work. Training for investigators emphasized digital forensics and the signs of manufactured evidence. Lena, the laundromat owner, received a small civic recognition for her quiet courage. The town memorialized June's ordeal during a community vigil that acknowledged both failure and resilience. Mara, under federal protection, eventually took a new identity and moved across the country. She remained in contact with Hale through secured channels for a time, sharing notes that helped close secondary investigations and protect remaining witnesses. She never fully returned to the life she'd had. The costs were too high. But she was alive and, by her own admission, had chosen a life of distance as the price of survival and the means to keep others safe. Hale did not return to the same precinct desk. The case had changed him. He accepted a role advising the state attorney general's office on reforms to prevent similar conspiracies. He visited June once, months after her rescue, and watched her plant a small tree at the edge of town. Something living and outward-facing in a place that had learned to look inward honestly. Some nights he still thumbed the Polaroid Mara had left, the one that had started the avalanche. He kept it in a small box labeled Remember. He never stopped thinking about how close the town had come to losing its moral compass and how easy it could be for systems to be corrupted when fear and money met in shadowed rooms. In time, trials closed, sentences were served, and the town moved forward with the hard work of rebuilding trust. June found steady work helping others who'd been manipulated by coerced testimonies. Mara found anonymity and safety, and eventually a place where her name no longer brought danger. Hale kept working to tighten the seams of oversight in other towns, determined that the operation that once ran through his community could not be repeated elsewhere. The case that had been the one the police tried to forget became instead a turning point. It showed how easily systems could be perverted, and also how persistence, community pressure, and careful forensic work could set them right. The men who sold fear and falsified truths were in cages. The contractors and their corrupt arrangements were dismantled. Survivors found voices. Whistleblowers were protected. When Hale closed the final file, after Mara's signed affidavit, after June's final court testimony, after payments and accounts were frozen, he felt a weight lift that had nothing to do with legal closure. The town would carry scars. People would carry memories. But for the first time since June's car had been found on Old Mill Road, Hale allowed himself to think the word that had been so distant. Done. He walked out of the records room into a late afternoon sun. June's tree creaked in a wind that smelled of salt and new leaves. Hale stood for a long while, then turned and walked toward the community he had fought to protect. The work would never be finished, but the dangerous secret machine had been broken. Justice, slow, imperfect, and human, had been done. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe to our channel for more chilling true crime stories.